Okay guys, so here's the part we've been waiting for.
Absolutely.
Now, our room is fairly simple. I mean, we don't have any wet areas, but we will be covering some unique features like stairs, pipes, wet areas, and transitions in other segments.
Okay, I've got all of our tools and materials ready.
Okay.
And I've checked all the planks for any damage, and they look great.
And they're going to look even better when we get the flooring down. Now, the first step is to pick a starting wall. Now, I recommend putting the planks parallel to the long side of the room. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on this wall right here.
Okay, before we start, what are the spacers for?
That's a really good question. Now, the spacers are going to give you a 3/8 inch expansion space on all the edges. So your Pergo flooring can expand and contract as the weather and the temperature changes. Now, this space is important in all Pergo installations and environments. Okay, well, we've got our planks. You ready?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Okay guys, well we're going to start with a 4-plank assembly here, and I've got my 4 pieces laid out. Now remember when we were taking the measurement of the room? Well, I discovered that our last row of planks was going to be less than 2 inches in width. So I need to make that a little bit wider. So to do that, I'm going to cut down our first plank here, because remember we had to cut the tongue off anyway. So I went ahead and ripped the first row down just a little bit. Now also remember we have an angle here, so I went ahead and cut those angles as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put the first pieces together. So if you'll take a look at my first board of my second row, I've cut this down to 32 inches because remember I want to stagger the joints at least a minimum of 12 inches. So cutting down this first piece will allow for that. Now I'm going to just take my finger here and make sure that it's flush right up here on the end, and with a 45-degree angle slide the tongue down into the groove and then lock it into place like that.
Wow, that was easy.
Yeah, it is. Okay, now to do my third piece, and I'm going to just lock in end to end, and again, it's the same application of just putting the tongue in the groove, making sure it's flush right here with my finger, holding it right there, and locking it down into place like that. Okay, now to do the fourth plank, it's basically the same thing. I'm going to lock in the short side first, but remember, we have to allow for the tongue to go past the board, so I've got to leave a little bit of a gap.
How do we close that gap then?
Down to place. That's a good question, and that's where a lot of people can get into trouble because you think you just got to tap it into place. Well, you don't want to do that because you could damage the plank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my weight back up here at the joint, and I'm going to lift the first plank right there, and I'm going to lift up further down this plank here and kind of align the tongue into the groove, and then roll it down and lock it into place.
Okay, I still see a little gap down at that end.
You're right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my weight right down here, and all you have to do, if you do have a little bit of gap, see how easy it is to just kind of lift back up? And I can just squeeze that gap closed and lock it right into place like so. Now, once I get a couple of rows put together, what I'm going to do is just slide this up into the corner here and work across the room. Now, do you have the spacers?
I sure do.
Okay, now remember, we have to keep an expansion space all the way around the perimeter of the room. So to do that, I'm just going to stack my spacers like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it every foot along the perimeter, and then on the end, I'm going to put it every row so that I make sure I keep that expansion space consistent. Okay, so once we get the 4 planks in place, we'll just push it up into the corner and just work across the room.
There we go.